My sister Martha asked me, "Now, Mary, what exactly was the point of that little scene you caused in the middle of dinner?" And all I could say was, it was something I could do. Getting a little ahead of myself, let me back up. Meeting Jesus. I guess I didn't expect him to be so personable. Like someone who would come into our home and have dinner with our family, laugh at our jokes, and tell some of his own. He had this one about a lion and a giraffe. I can't tell it like he could. Sitting with him made everything else seem less important. So we decided right before Passover to have him over for dinner in our home to honor him for everything he'd done for our family. Looking back on that night, we knew. Knowing everyone, the whole world, it seemed, against him. We could have done so much more. We should have done more to show him that we were unified, that we were all for him. And that was a missed opportunity. Where was I? So we were having dinner that night to honor him. But how do you thank someone for bringing your brother back to life? Sister Martha was in the kitchen preparing this perfect meal because that's what she does. And then there was me. What could I do? I decided to give up one of my most precious possessions. Precious things given to Jesus. They're never wasted. As soon as I did it, it was obvious. Some people were not pleased with my decision. It wasn't something planned. It was spur of the moment. It leapt from my heart. I let my hair down in public, which is something you just don't do. And I wiped his feet with it. And I took this jar of expensive perfumed oil and I poured it out to honor him. And the scent, it filled the room. Now, if I had stayed paralyzed in fear over what my sister Martha, who just made this huge meal, would have thought, or the anger of the onlookers, or what a disciple might have said, I might never have worshiped him that way. And the beautiful fragrance, it just stayed for days and days. And sitting at his feet, none of their opinions mattered. Jesus was pleased with my gift, and he stood up and he defended me. So why did I do it? I guess it was all I had. And days later, Jesus would pour out everything he had for us, for me.
I serve an unapproachable God. Well, actually, I serve the high priests who serve an unapproachable God. But everything changed on that one night. Everything changed in one night. I was dragged to the garden, and then my ear got, well, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. I was in the garden with Judas. Judas knew exactly where Jesus was going to be, and we were all there waiting for him. It was crazy that night. His disciples were there, but I saw Jesus. I was standing very close to Jesus, and I could tell that he looked visibly upset. Anyway, Judas comes over and kisses Jesus on the cheek. And I was standing close enough to them that I heard Jesus call Judas his friend. And then I didn't hear anything at all. I saw the flash of a blade coming toward my face, and I felt the blood streaming down. And then it got really quiet. Then I got really, really dizzy. And then Jesus, he reached out and he touched me. Now, I've heard all the stories about this Jesus, about the way he healed people with his hands. Well, there was even this one time where he reached down and he scooped up a handful of dirt, spit in it, made mud, and healed a man just with that. He healed people all the time just by touching them with his hands. But it wasn't his hands for me. It was the way he looked at me. It was what I saw in his eyes. That's what broke me. And in those eyes, I saw compassion and grief and joy. When he took his hand away from my ear, it was, like I said, everything I knew about that man changed in one night. They had a mock trial for him. I mean, the whole thing was basically just a big setup to condemn him. And he just stood there and was silent the whole time. It was almost like he felt sorry for us. There was the sentencing, and there was Pilate, and there was the crucifixion and an earthquake. And then there was the veil. I was in the temple when the veil was torn in two from top to bottom. Do you know what that means? Even I know what that meant. God was inviting us in. The unapproachable God was making himself approachable for all of us. There's no doubt about it. God was on the move.
So I was going to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, and he was being led out as a Passover lamb. But we didn't understand that at the time. There were so many more people there than there was the last time I was there. And it was like, it was filled with anger. Just mobs and mobs of angry people. I was standing in the crowd, and a guard, this soldier came and he grabbed me. I mean, literally grabbed me and yanked me out of the crowd. And he said, "You have to help this man carry his cross." See, if this man's blood gets on me, it stains me. And then I can't celebrate the Passover, which is the whole reason I'm there. The blood. You could barely see the man through all the blood. And then our eyes met. And I knew at that moment, this man, he wasn't a liar. He wasn't some crazy guy with these grand ideas. This man was the Messiah. I carried what I could, but he carried most of it. He started to walk. and I could feel his blood dripping on me. I could hear them yelling insults at him, and now they're yelling them at me. I could feel the spit. We get there, and they had made a crown of thorns, and they pushed it on his head. And then they laid him down on a cross, and they started to nail his hands and his feet to it. They lifted it up, and when they did, all the weight of his body went onto his feet. And he would lift up. With everything he had, he would just lift up to just get one more breath. And he did this for hours. I couldn't watch. I just could not watch anymore. Then I saw my hands. He had his blood all over them. His blood had stained my hands. And I thought, this blood that I thought was going to make me unclean is now making me clean. He gasped his last breath, and then he died. And that was the day that I helped Jesus carry. That was the day that I helped Jesus carry my cross. He hung on that cross for my sins.
I don't really know how. What would the word be for terrified and excited? Do you know? Well, all I know is we were both of those things that morning. And I ran faster than sandals ought to be able to carry you. We had to tell everybody what had happened. After Jesus was crucified, it was all over. Were we wrong about him? We had to have been. Jesus was dead, and we hid in fear. Well, that morning, a group of us women went to prepare his body with spices and ointments. It was the least we could do, you know? Even though it didn't make any kind of sense. For 3 days, and it was the longest 3 days of my life, we were so afraid. But oh, Sunday, my head was racing faster than my feet. We bolted from that tomb. None of the other disciples were going to believe what we had to explain to them. I mean, a massive sealed tombstone moved. Roman soldiers silenced. Blinding angels. Unnecessary grave clothes now lay folded neatly inside the tomb, as if they had some sort of secret to tell. Well, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But an empty tomb,
That's worth 1,000 promises. Do you see what this means? We were waiting for the Messiah to come and rescue Israel. And Jesus exceeded all our expectations. He was the Messiah that nobody could contain, because we were hoping too small. This means that everything that has been taken, God can restore. If there is a way to be made, it's through him. If there is hope in this world, his name is Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, our Messiah, my Messiah. He lives. Oh, yes, he lives. The secret is out. Oh, it's out. He's alive. Oh, glory. He's alive.